Is there any reason why you go to the grocery store at 1:45 in the morning?
Ma'am, my husband works third shift, and he goes to college half of the day, so we have very irregular hours.
Was there any reason you went to the grocery store at 1:45 in the morning?
To get formula for my baby.
Why didn't he go?
It wasn't necessary. He needed to stay at home with the children.
How many children do you have?
I have 4.
Go ahead.
That's what I did. I went to the grocery store that night.
Well, at what point did you call her on the telephone and leave that message?
It's very emotional.
At what time did you call her that evening and leave that message?
That's been months ago, Your Honor.
Well, certainly it's been months ago. At what point did you call her and leave that message on her answering machine?
The only time I remember having any confrontation with her was earlier in the day.
I'm not asking you about confrontation, madam. You didn't speak to her when you called. I'm asking you at what time in the evening did you call and leave that message on her answering machine?
I cannot be sure.
So you don't remember when you made the phone call, is that what you're telling me?
Yes, ma'am.
You do, however, remember putting this note on the car, because that's what you told the police officer.
I don't recall putting that note on her car.
Well, that's what you told the policeman who interviewed you.
That is my handwriting.
You told the policeman that you put this note on her car.
That was directly after the incident, so if that's what I told him, yes, ma'am.
Okay, can I see your estimate to fix the damage on your car, please?
Just because I left a note on her car does not mean that I keyed it.
You have photographs of the car?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see them, please. Where on the car was the note?
On the driver's side windshield.
It was raining that night.
I know. I retrieved it as soon as she left it there.
So you went out immediately?
Yes.
Right. Because clearly the police who observed the note, this is just a copy of it.
No, because that note was left earlier in the day, not that night when it was raining.
I'm speaking.
Yes, ma'am.
Police officer observed the note. The police officer described its condition. It was, in fact, wet. And what the police officer found is that the bags that you showed them to explain that you were in the store immediately prior, so that they took the bags and looked at them, noticed that despite the fact that it was raining very, very hard that evening, the bags that you got from the store were miraculously dry, according to the police report. There are other ways of dealing with problems.
I didn't key your car.
I believe you did.
Well, you're right.
My judgment.
You have the right to believe
Absolutely
that.
Right. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $700. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Megan Coe claims ex-boyfriend Ryan Anderson owes for loans to buy a car and to pay his DUI fines.
Mr. Anderson, you have this petrified look on your face.
Oh, I'm not petrified at all.
Let's see what we can do about that.
Okay.
Miss Coe was a girlfriend of yours?
Ex.
I want you to listen very carefully. Put on your listening ears,
Sorry.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes, Your Honor.
I said Miss Coe was a girlfriend of yours, correct?
Yes.
And you knew her for a long time, but got into sort of a more committed relationship around 2003. Sometime, according to you, Miss Coe, in 2005, you loaned the defendant $2,000.
Correct.
Now you want that money back.
That's right.
Mr. Anderson says, never any discussion of paying you the money back? It was a gift?
Correct.
She gave you $2,000 when, Mr. Anderson?
It was approximately September of 2005.
Were you living together at the time?
Yes, we were.
What was the money for?
Well, it was some fines that I had occurred.
What kind of fines?
Through the court system.
What kind of fines?
They were for DUI conviction.
How much were the fines?
Approximately $900.
Did you pay any of the fines, sir?
I had paid some previously, and those were the remaining balance.
How much did you pay?
The total fines were about $2,800.
Is this the first DUI that you had?
I had 2 within a short period of time.
That's why the fines were so high.
Yes, ma'am.
So you paid
$2,100, yes.
You paid $2,100.
The DUIs.
Shh. I assume that you have something that's going to indicate that that's not the case. I'll look at it in a minute, Ms. Coe. So why did you need the $900 from Ms. Coe?
I currently had no license, and I had to pay the fees off to acquire my license again. So I needed the money to pay off the fees to get my license to drive.
Okay.
And with the hours I was working, it was tough on Megan to get me to work and back from where we were living.
So you must have said something to her. You have to have said something to her, because otherwise she'd have to be clairvoyant to know that you needed $900.
Well, she was fully aware.
Shh. She'd have to be clairvoyant to know that you needed $900, so that had to come a point when you said to her something like, I need $900 to pay for the rest of the fines.
Well, we were in a committed relationship at the time.
I don't care, we're committed relationship. I'm talking about words, spoken words.
I understand that. So there's going to be words exchanged knowing, well, how come you're not driving? Well, I'm not driving because I
Well,
still
that's what I want to know. Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
That's what I want to know, sir.
Yes.
I want to know what the conversation was, what you said.
Yes.
And what she said.
Megan knew of my circumstances.
Don't tell me what she knew. I want to know what you said.
Okay, Megan knew because of words being exchanged to each other.
I want the words.
I had told Megan that I had received 2 DUIs in the past, and I still owed an amount of $900 that I had to pay to acquire my license.
And she said to you?
And it came to a point where she told me when I was eligible for that she would help me pay for those fines.
And what did you say to her?
That I said that would be great. I could use that, then I could get a car, and I could get my license.
And she said, fine.
Yes.
And that's when she gave you the $900.
That's when the $900 came into play for the fees, yes.
And what was the other money she gave you?
Apparently, she paid $1,000 for a 1983 GMC Jimmy.
What do you mean apparently? What is that?
I've never seen a receipt or a bill of sale for it.
Well, who got the Jimmy?
I drive the Jimmy. The registration's in my name.
How did you get the car, sir?
Megan knew somebody who was selling the vehicle, and she told me that she had given the gentleman $1,000 for the 1983 Jimmy. Okay, I never saw a bill of sale.
And how did she give you the car?
He drove the car to my house. I looked at it and said, okay, you know, not a mechanic or anything, didn't look under the hood, didn't do any of that. You know, looked at it, it was in, you know, good condition for a 1983, had low miles. It's like, all right, $1,000, that's a good deal. You know, the book value's $1,500. No, that's not a problem. So she gave me the keys, went down as soon as I could with the fees paid, and got my license and got the car registered under my name.
Okay, and that's the money?
Yes.
So it's $1,900?
Approximately $1,900, yes.
Go.
All right.
Let's start with the DUI convictions and the fees. You were dying to tell me something.
I have receipts for the payment of the fees, and it's over $900. I went and paid myself in cash, went to the courthouse for him because he had no transportation. Do you want to see them, the receipts?
No, I believe it. He says that you paid them.
Also, it was never a gift to him. It was fully intended to be a loan. I did it to help him out so he could get his license so I would not have to drive him around.
Just tell me the conversation, madam.
In September, he was eligible to get his license back. And so he was in the mix of trying to get his license back. He had these DUI fines that he needed to pay off. So I told him that I would loan him $900+ to pay off his DUI fines. And he would to pay me back in monthly payments and with his January of 2006 tax refund.
Okay, did he do that?
No.
So he didn't pay you back in January 2006. When did you and Mr. Anderson separate?
January of 2006.
Tell me how that came about.
Well, Mr. Anderson's continues to drink excessively and black out, verbally pretty much assault me and pretty much say rude things to me. It pretty much came to the point the last night I was there that I had to sleep in front of the door so he would not leave and drink and drive again.
Okay, so the fines you paid, and what about the car? How did that come about?
He needed a car. I told him that I would loan him $1,000, and he would pay me back the same way as the DUI fines.
How did you find the car?
My friend was selling his GMC Jimmy. It was $1,000. I asked him if I could buy it from him for Ryan, and he said yes.
And you gave him a check?
I gave him the check.
And he gave you the keys?
He gave me the keys and the title.
And the title. And then you drove it home, or did he drive it home?
Nathan drove it home. The owner.
And where was Mr. Anderson?
Mr. Anderson was at the apartment.
Okay. Tell me what happened when you drove up.
I was like, here's the GMC Jimmy. What do you think of it? I think it's a great car for $1,000. I don't think you're going to be able to find something better for $1,000. And he agreed with me.
That's pretty much what he said? Mm-hmm. Was he working?
Yes, working full-time.
Just a second. September, October, November, December, he was working full-time. He now had a car.
Right.
How much of this $1,900 did he pay back to you?
Zero.
That's because it wasn't a loan. That's because it became a loan when you decided it was over. Because if it was a loan, he would have paid you $50 a month, $60 a month, $100 a month, $25 a week. He would have paid you back something between September and January.
He made excuses as to why he could not pay me back. He couldn't afford going to school.
Then you should have thrown him out. What you did with the car was you spent $1,000 on a car and then you came home and surprised him. That's what you did. You didn't take him to buy the car. You didn't show him the car before you purchased it. You purchased a car for $1,000 and you came home and said, I got your wheels so that you could drive yourself to and from your job so that I don't have to do it anymore. And if the romance hadn't been over, he wouldn't have paid you back anything.
We continued to have conversations after January of 2006. On the telephone. I have a witness hearing me speak to him. I have a letter stating all the information from the maker of the transactions I did, having conversations with him, making payments.
And B, he's going to testify as to what you said to him on the telephone?
As into the payment arrangements that we have discussed payments on the phone, and he makes excuses every time why he cannot make a payment to me. He was supposed to also pay me with tuition reimbursements from his work. He always made an excuse. He had other bills to pay, so forth and so forth. And that is why I took it to small claims.
A year and a half later, a year and a half after you laid out $1,900.
Well, I told him that he had the chance to pay me, and after a quarter of a year, then I would take him to small claims.
After the romance is over, madam, is not the time to say now you have 3 months or 4 months or 5 months. I mean, I'm sympathetic with you, but you were in love with the guy, and you thought your relationship was going someplace, and you wanted him to have the means to get to work.
So because I did him a favor, I shouldn't get paid back a loan that we agreed. We had a verbal agreement.
Listen, I have to make a judgment as to whether or not you, who are sharing a home and having an intimate relationship with somebody, has said to them, this is a loan. You will pay me back in January out of your income tax returns. This is a loan. I am giving you $1,000 towards a car, but you go and buy the car. You purchase the car, you come back, you show him the car, and give him the keys. That's not a loan for a car. So, Ms. Cole, what I'm telling you is, I have to make a judgment. I'm sympathetic with you. I'm sympathetic with you. You're out $1,900, and if he had any moral fiber, he would pay you back. But if you gave him this money in September, and from September to January, he was working full-time and made absolutely no attempt to pay you back a nickel, not $5, and you tolerated that, I have to assume it was not a loan. Period. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Dora Huff claims a strange son-in-law, Paul Veloff, owes for bail money she posted on his behalf.
Ms. Huff, the defendant is your soon-to-be ex-son-in-law. I assume this is your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that he owes you money for bail.
Yes, ma'am.
And that he agreed to pay you back once you had bailed him out, and he has declined to do so. Mr. Veloff says you made no agreement with him with regard to the bail money. You made an agreement with his wife. So if you want the bail money paid, get it from your daughter. That's your defense?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Veloff, how long have you been married?
13 years, 14 years.
13 or 14 years?
13.
You have children?
Yes, 2.
How many?
2.
When were you arrested, sir?
It was filed on July 4th, but I actually turned myself in on that Sunday, which would have been, I think, the 6th, 7th? Of July, I'm sorry.
7/7 of 06?
Yes.
Is this the first time you had been arrested, sir?
Yes.
And this was for domestic violence?
Yes.
And the domestic violence alleged that you either assaulted or threatened or harassed your wife?
Right.
Were you in or out of the house on the 7th of July?
In the house.
No. Okay. Mrs. Veloff, when did you complain about your husband's conduct to the police?
The incident of 4th of July.
Tell me about the incident.
We have been having marital problems for quite a while, and a recurring situation came up again that he was not working and taking care of his responsibilities. It escalated into a yelling argument that turned physical. Shortly after, well, the argument went on for quite a while. He was restraining me. I was not allowed. I was undressed coming out of the shower. He wouldn't allow me to get dressed. He wouldn't allow me to leave the master bedroom. Finally, when I did get out of the bedroom, I made it down to the lowest floor of the house, got a phone, and dialed 911. While I was on the phone with the dispatcher, he left the property. While he was gone, they dispatched 2 sheriff's vehicles to the house. They took my statement, took photos.
A copy of the statement, please. Do you have a copy of that police report?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay. They took photographs of what?
They took photographs of the marks on my body and the damage to the home.
What kind of marks did you have on your body?
My arms were bruised where he had grabbed me and forcibly threw me on the bed. My neck was irritated and red.
Your Honor, I do have a copy of the...
I'd like to see them. Where were your children when all this was going on?
There was a 4th of July community picnic that my daughter was at, and my son was outside playing basketball with a friend of his. I believe, well, he was in the driveway. I think they were playing basketball.
How old are your children?
14 and 12.
What's the status of this protective order?
The restraining order?
Yeah, what's the status of the case?
The case was dismissed.
When was the case dismissed?
It went to trial while my mother and I were in Italy for 2 weeks. It was dismissed because I did not show to testify.
Why didn't you appear to testify?
I was in Italy.
Why did you go to Italy during the trial?
It was already pre-planned, the trip. All of the subpoenas for me to appear were in my mail when I got back.
Your Honor, this was a 2-week Mediterranean cruise. We had planned 7 months prior to take all the kids and grandkids, everybody.
Got it. But, Ms. Veloff, after he was arrested, because he turned himself in, according to your mother's complaint, he called you and asked you to bail him out, right?
Yes.
How much was your bail?
$2,000.
And why did you think your wife would bail you out when she was the one who filed the complaint?
Well, I called her because it started getting really rough in the jail, and I've never experienced anything like that. And I called her.
How rough was it?
They found knives, shanks.
So you wanted out of there?
Yeah, and it was Wednesday night. The other inmates were starting to get their commissary or whatever they buy for the week, and a lot of it was like cold medicine, and they were chopping it up and snorting it, and I could see attitudes change, and it started getting really scary.
So you were frightened?
Yes.
So you called your wife?
Yes, I did.
And what did you say to her?
I asked her to call my dad to see if he would bail me out.
Why didn't you call your dad?
Why didn't I call my dad?
That's exactly what I said. Why didn't you call your dad? Why are you calling the alleged victim instead of calling your father directly? Don't you speak to him?
Yes, I do.
So then why didn't you call your father yourself?
The phone calls I was able to make were very limited.
Well, I understand they're very limited. I've been in the justice system a very long time. There's no reason that you're going to be able to give me that I'm going to be satisfied with, sir, as to why you didn't call your father yourself.
I don't know.
Ma'am.
Maybe your wife is going to tell me.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you call his father?
First of all, he called the house and spoke to our son, who then called me. So by the time I got the phone call, our son was frantic with worry, thinking that his father was in mortal jeopardy.
Okay.
And then I did go and call his father, and his father said no.
That's why you didn't call him.
No, that's not true.
Otherwise, sir, you know, if something doesn't make sense, it's usually not true. How old is your son?
14.
Before I would involve my 14-year-old son in the fact that I was incarcerated and I was frightened for my life, I would call my father. If I had a decent relationship with my father and if I felt that my father would want to protect me, I certainly wouldn't involve my teenage child. That's not being a protective parent.
I did not know he was going to answer the phone.
What kind of just a second. What kind of dumb answer is that?
I mean,
What kind of a dumb answer? So because he answered the phone, you unloaded on him?
I didn't unload.
Well, of course you did. Okay. So now you're between a rock and a hard place. You got your 14-year-old child saying you got to do something to get dad out of jail. You got his father who says, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not putting up any money for him. You don't have any money, so you call your mother.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And you say, you got to help me out here. You got to help me out. And she goes down and she puts up the bond. That's so far what happened.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when you got out of jail, Mr. Veloff, who was there?
Who was there? My kids, my wife, and my mother-in-law.
And what did you say to your mother-in-law?
Thank you.
What else did you say to her? What else did he say?
And he hugged me, and he thanked me, and I told him 2 things. 1, he had to get his act together, and 2, because he didn't have a job, he had to pay me back, and he owned 2 cars, which he'd already told Tracy he would do. I expected him to sell one of the 2 cars.
To pay you back?
To pay me back for my credit card. I'm sorry.
And did he pay you back?
No, ma'am.
Why should your mother-in-law pay your bail?
I didn't ask her to.
No, you didn't ask her to. That's absolutely right, Mr. Veloff. You did not ask her to. But you promised to pay her back. But you promised to pay her back. You didn't ask her to, and absolutely, if you hadn't said to her, I'm going to pay you back, that unfortunately for Miss Huff, there would have been no recourse. The truth of the matter is, at the time that she put up the bail for her daughter and her grandchildren. Because as far as she was concerned, you could have rotted in hell. I'm sure. I'm sure. If she didn't have grandchildren, that's probably what she would have said to her daughter. Let him stay there. But she has grandchildren, and you can't do that when you have teenage grandchildren. You can't say, listen, You're going to let your father rot in jail. So he's going to call here and he's going to complain that somebody's going to shank him. Mr. Veloff, as you see, sir, I have zero sympathy for your position morally, and I have zero sympathy for your position legally. If you had not told your mother-in-law that you would pay her back.
I promised to get my act together and get a job.
Just a second. Just a second. Did you get your act together?
Yes.
Did you get a job?
Yes.
Good. Now you have money to pay it back. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,020. That's all. Step out.
Donnie Gatewood claims his daughter, Crystal Gatewood, and her boyfriend, Christopher Mayer, owe for loans. The defendants are countersuing, claiming Donnie put sugar in Christopher's gas tank.
Ma'am, have a seat.
Mr. Gatewood, this young lady is your daughter, and the co-defendant is her boyfriend. They have a couple of children together. They are not married.
Correct, ma'am.
It is your claim that you made a loan to them,
Yes,
a loan in the amount of, I believe, $4,000.
Yes, ma'am.
That they were supposed to pay you back. They
Correct.
didn't do that.
Correct.
Your daughter and the boyfriend say that this was not a loan, this was a gift, because they had fallen on some hard financial times, and that you became more and more obsessed with getting this money back, an obsession that rose to the level of harassment. They are counterclaiming, claiming that you not only harassed them, but that you vandalized Mr. Mayer's car.
Yes.
How old are you?
I'm 20.
How many children do you have?
I have 2.
How old are they?
They are 2 and 6 months.
Is Mr. Mayer the father of both of those
Yes.
children?
Yes.
What do you do for a living?
I was a forklift driver.
Well, how long ago were you a forklift driver?
A few weeks ago,
And how long were you a forklift driver?
for about 6 months.
Before that, what did you do?
Forklift driver at another job.
Why do you keep changing jobs?
Because Mr. Gatewood keeps calling on my jobs.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's somebody else's fault. It's not your fault that you lose these jobs.
Right.
How much did you make at your job?
I was making $8.50
$8.50.
hour.
That's not a lot of money.
No, ma'am.
Can't support yourself and 2 children on $8.50 an hour. So what do you do for a living?
I stay at home with the children.
Well, you can't afford to do that.
Well, right before this job, he had a job that paid $12.90 an hour.
$12.90 an hour, a virtual windfall. You think you can support a family on $12.90 an hour gross?
I think it's a pretty good amount.
And when did you lose that job?
November.
And you went right to work for somebody else?
Yes.
When did they call and ask you for money?
About the first part of February of this year, your ma'am.
Now, if you were working in February, what did you need money for? Look, don't go like that. I don't know. If he's working as a forklift operator at a job that he can support a wife and 2 children, girlfriend, excuse me, why did you call your father for money?
Pretty much he continued to lose every job right around 3 weeks. And each time the boss of the job would call and say, I'm sorry, we have to let you go, but there's a complaint that we got from a person calling in. And
a boss doesn't fire him if he's doing a good job because some stranger calls that he doesn't know and says he's not doing a good job. That doesn't make sense, Miss Gatewood. Okay, so you called your father and said that you needed money.
we actually called him and said, could we stay with you for a while until we got something saved up?
So, Miss Gatewood, so you called the person who you thought was responsible for your husband, I keep saying that, I must be old-fashioned, for your boyfriend losing his jobs, job after job after job. So what you did was call him and say, could we come and stay with you?
I asked for me and the kids to come and stay.
I'm trying to get where you're coming from. You call the person who you believe is responsible for all your bad luck and say, can we come and stay with you? And what did your father say?
He said we could stay for a few days, but he'd like to try to find us a place to stay for us to be stable.
Okay. And you said?
I said that'd be great.
And?
We went looking for mobile homes. We finally found one that we could buy for $1,000. So he told us that he would get us a loan to help build my credit.
Great. So you went to the bank?
Yes.
And what happened to the bank?
We got a $4,000 loan that my dad agreed he would pay. I didn't have a job at the time. Chris knew nothing about it.
Chris knew nothing about it. When you moved into this mobile home that you found, he wasn't going to move in with you?
Chris wasn't any part of the loan. He was going to live with me.
Just answer my question.
Yes, he was going to live there.
Well, if he was going to live there, where did he think that you got the money from?
I told him my dad was going to help us out. That's what we were told. It was going to be a gift.
Is that right, sir?
No, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Gatewood, you want to tell me your version of what happened with your daughter and this money?
Yes, ma'am. At approximately first part of February of this year, my daughter called me crying, saying that she was being evicted from her apartment. Said they had no money for gas, no money for food. It was snowing. They wanted to know if they could come with me. I said, you and the girls can. That young man can't hold a job. He's not welcome. I got off the phone. About 20 minutes later, I called my daughter back. She was upset. I said, I tell you what, I'm going to help you. It's going to be a loan. You got a tax return coming. You can pay me back part of it this year and part of it next year. At that time, that loan will establish your credit. It will also gain you new residency, which it did. We got a trailer for her, 14 by 70, 1974 trailer. Got her a washer and dryer, got her a couch, got her a refrigerator. And
when you say you got her, did she go with you shopping?
Yes, yes. We actually purchased the trailer.
The washer and dryer came with it.
The washer and dryer and the couch basically came with
the refrigerator he got from work.
Okay.
For free.
That's
now,
correct.
you took out, according to you, a $4,000 loan. The trailer was, according to your daughter, $1,000. What happened to the rest of the money?
That's correct. We gave the actual person that we bought the trailer from $2,800.
No, we
For
did
what?
not.
For the trailer and all the belongings in the trailer, for the furnishings.
You have proof of that?
All I have is the loan, ma'am.
Well, I'd have to know what happened with the money.
Well, I gave her the cash to help.
Look at me.
I gave her cash so they could pay their car payment so they wouldn't lose their car.
Okay.
That's not correct.
How much money did your father give you?
He gave us $1,000 for the mobile home, $500 paid for the washer, dryer, couch, and stove that came with it, and $500 towards lot rent and starting all our utilities up.
So he actually gave you $2,000?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
That's not true, Your Honor. We gave the gentleman $2,800, and the other $1,200 I gave to my daughter. I did not give it to him. I gave it to her in cash.
Okay. Now, they're supposed to pay you back with their tax return, but something happened, Mr. Gatewood, according to your complaint, that irritated you. Your daughter said, according to you, she said she couldn't make the first payment.
Correct.
So you went to the bank and made the payment. That was $300 and some odd.
$375, yes, ma'am.
Then what happened, sir?
From that time, she basically asked for me to pay her lot rent as well. And I promptly went straight up there within the hour and paid her lot rent.
How much was the lot rent?
$300.
What were you doing all this time?
I was working.
Why wasn't your rent being paid?
Actually, he went up there himself and paid it off, and then
But why
gave
wasn't
her a
your
phone
rent?
call.
Listen to me. He would not have known to pay the lot rent unless somebody told him that the lot rent hadn't been paid.
Well, our deal
I'm not asking you. Why hadn't you paid the lot rent?
Because I haven't had my first check yet.
So your lot rent was not paid. Your food was not paid. If you didn't have any money, so you were using the money, is that right, Mr. Marr, that he gave you?
I never had money.
Well, you were eating, weren't you? You weren't on life support.
She has food stamps that she gets food from and everything.
Why would she have food stamps?
Because
She's on
you
Medicaid.
keep struggling. We're never getting
Well,
ahead.
if you keep struggling, what'd you have another baby for? You think that that was going to make it easier? Okay. Did you get your tax return back?
Yes.
How much did you get?
I think altogether about $4,500.
And it didn't dawn on you to pay your father back for this loan?
No, we were never told to pay him back.
Well, you're here now. And he must have said something before you arrived here today.
We were told it was a complete gift.
You were told that by your father?
Yes.
So between February and March, when he came to the house and told you that he wanted some money, because that's what you say in your answer, you think he had a psychotic breakdown?
My
I
dad
mean, you
goes-
think he had a psychotic breakdown?
I think he goes through different moments where one day he wants to be our friend and the next day he doesn't.
That's not be your friend, and one day he doesn't want to be his friend until he grows up and accepts responsibility for making 2 children and holding down a job regularly. What I'm asking you is if your father comes and says, look, I took out a loan. I need you to pay me back part of it now and part of it next year, and you just got $4,500, why you wouldn't do that? Why you wouldn't do that? It's your money. You're the one who works. She doesn't work. She gets food stamps.
Every time they went to do something with whatever they were doing with the money or whatever, he came over and got her, and they left and did whatever they did. I stayed at home with the kids those times. Never knew anything, never signed
Well,
anything.
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe that you never knew anything. I believe that he came and got
Well,
her.
I
and
knew
you
where
wanted
they
to
were
know-
going, yeah.
You knew what they were going. You knew what they were going for, right?
Yes.
It's just that Mr. Gatewood didn't want to deal with you. He doesn't approve of the fact that you made 2 children. You have his daughter living from hand to mouth. She's not helping herself, but certainly you're not stepping up to the plate and assuming the responsibility of a head of household. So he doesn't want to have anything to do with you until you grow up. I could understand that. So he takes his daughter. That doesn't mean you're a defendant, because I don't think that you made your arrangement with him. I think you made your arrangement with her.
I made it with both of them, ma'am, and he knows that.
No. Even you tell me that you didn't make the arrangement with him. You went to the bank with her.
Not initially on the phone, ma'am, but when I went over to their trailer or to their apartment before I went to the bank, I told them that that's what was going to happen. I was going to go to the bank.
Just because you told them that that was going to happen, sir, does not a contract make.
Yes, ma'am. I understand.
That's a parent saying, this is what you're going to do.
Sure.
And unless you have somebody said, fine, offer, acceptance, then you don't have a contract.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think your agreement was with your daughter. And I don't believe her when she says it was an absolute gift. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come over to the house to try to get payment.
He came over to the house because we quit talking to him. We just wanted nothing to do with him. He started...
Well, why would you have nothing to do with him before he took out a loan for you as, according to you, a gift for $4,000?
Because...
According to you. Why would you want to all of a sudden have nothing to do with him?
Because they all of a sudden wanted nothing to do with us. They didn't have us come over. My mom never came to see my daughters, nothing.
You're talking about 2 weeks? You're talking about from February to March?
Yeah, my mom would come over at least like twice a week and see them, and she just quit coming over, quit caring.
Oh, you're just a victim. You're a terrible victim. What do you think? You think both your mother and your father had psychiatric problems during those 2 weeks?
No.
Well, what do you think happened?
I don't know. I think they got money greedy and...
Money? They got money greedy?
Yes. I think we deserve that money because as many jobs as my dad has cost Chris.
Miss Gatewood, if you believe the fact that your father caused Chris to lose his job, you better have a head adjustment. He may have convinced you of that, but the truth of the matter is, that's a lot of baloney. A lot of baloney. Do you think I'm a smart lady?
Yes.
They don't keep me around here because I'm 5'6" and gorgeous. They keep me around here because I'm very, very smart. And I have a history with people. Things make sense or they don't make sense. Parents who are faced with the fact that their daughter has had 2 illegitimate children with a man who can't hold down a job, but who seems to be in love with him and seems to at least want to try to make a life with him, don't sabotage that by getting him fired from his job so that their daughter will be out in the cold with her 2 children.
I believe it's a control thing. Like, he always wants to know where I am, everything. He's always tried to bring me back to his house.
No, he's not. You called him and asked if you could come home, and he said you can come home for a while, but I'd much rather see you in your own place. He doesn't want you to come home with the 2 children. He doesn't want to be a parent to your 2 little children.
And he doesn't want to be a grandparent either.
Oh, Miss Gateway, you are truly a victim. Maybe you found the perfect foil. What you are is a big baby who has babies, but who made an agreement with your father, and then he said, I'm not giving him my $4,500. There's no way. I didn't make an agreement with him to give him $4,500, and you don't have $4,500 because you don't work. And that's what started the problem with your father. Because if you believe that your father was the cause of all of your troubles, you have to be crazy to call him up and to say, can I come home with the girls? So you really didn't believe that because you could have called his parents and said, we're being evicted. You didn't call them. You called the terrible people who were sabotaging your life. Grow up, because your tears don't make it with me. I guarantee you, they shed more tears than you did. No. Bad people. They're really bad people. The fact that you picked somebody who can't hold a job and who can't accept the responsibility for children that he made, that's their fault too.
He's there for his kid and he tries.
Well, he shouldn't be there for his kids. He should be working. You're there for his kids. And you should be working too. And in addition to food stamps, as long as you're not married, which is one of the reasons you get food stamps, along with the food stamps, there are federal programs that give you free daycare. Put your kids in daycare and get a job.
I had a bad influence with the daycare one time. One of my daughters got hurt.
Also, somebody else's fault. So get another daycare. And you don't solve your problem by making another baby.
I know.
Maximum limit that you're suing for is $3,000 on your complaint. On your complaint, I'm awarding you the $3,000 because that's the maximum in your jurisdiction. I have a counterclaim. Counterclaim says, Mr. Gateway, that you put sugar in Mr. Marr's gas tank.
That is not true.
Go ahead. Prove it.
We got a call from him about 5 minutes before.
Who's we?
Chris received the call. I was over there and also Chris's best friend. And he said...
Wait just a second. You were over where?
I was at the house.
But you didn't get the call?
No. I wasn't answering any phone calls.
Fine. Then you tell me what the call was.
I'll answer it. It's Mr. Gatewood, and he says, well, since you guys aren't going to cooperate with me now and blah, blah, blah.
No, I don't want to hear blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah I can get when I speak to my 3-year-old grandchild. I want to hear what he said to you, Mr.
He said,
Marr.
since you guys don't want to cooperate with me now.
Don't want to cooperate. Those are the words he used? Since you guys don't want to cooperate with me, go ahead.
There's sugar in your gas tank, and I hope it blows up.
So what did you do?
We went out and checked the gas tank.
Immediately hung up the phone, went outside. Me and my friend went outside. I opened the gas tank, see some white substance at the bottom. Checked my friend's truck. There's more on his than mine. I guess he thought I'd bought a new truck. We called the cops. They came over, took a report.
The cop states in the report that there is.
Don't tell me what the police said. I'll see the police report.
I think it's on like the 3rd page.
Who blacked this out?
The police station does it.
Fill in the blanks. Mayor, that's you. This is what you told the police. Stated that the problem stemmed from a loan that blacked out, co-signed for blank. That's what you told the police. According to Mayor, you have been harassing them for the last couple of days, including calling their home constantly. Prior to calling the police, he was speaking to you on the phone. Conversation quickly became heated and turned into an argument. While they were speaking, you told Mayor he put sugar in the gas tank of his car. Mayor and your friend then checked the gas tank of both their vehicles and saw crystal-like substance, so Mayor called the police. So here, Miss Gatewood, your boyfriend acknowledges that this was a loan. Was there anything wrong with your car?
Yes.
Uncross your hands. You have either the estimate or the cost of fixing it?
No, I don't.
Well, where is it?
I let my friend fix the filter of my car.
So you had no damages?
No, you had to change the whole complete
I had to change the filter
filter
of my gas tank.
Well, where's the bill?
I paid him $100 to go get the filter and fix my car.
So what you're telling me is you have no proof that there was any damage done to your car.
Right.
You owe your father $3,000. Who knows whether he's going to be forever? When people get married in this country today, there is a 52% chance that the marriage will terminate. When people start off like the two of you starting off, the expectation is that statistically you will not know what he looks like in 5 years. Very great. You only have in your life 2 parents. Those 2 people. I would suggest that you think about that. I would also suggest that you think about the fact that certain things make sense and certain things don't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, it's usually not true. And the fact that he has convinced you that the cause of his problems at work is your father is just ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, it's not true. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000.
Frances Garcia is suing her mother, Joan LeGrand, for the unpaid interest on a loan. Frances says her mother has a gambling problem.
Miss Garcia, Miss LeGrand is your mother.
Yes.
And some time ago you made a loan to her, a loan which she acknowledges. It's a loan for, I think, $1,500. Is that right?
Yes.
And she paid you back the loan.
No, not fully.
How much does she owe on the loan?
The loan itself, it's $100 or $200.
You said 100 or 200. Well, this is a court. Be specific. Does she owe you 100 or 200?
Let me check here, so I can be specific. 100 difference.
It was a $1,500 loan. She paid you back $1,400.
Mm-hmm.
What did you need the money for, Miss LeGrand?
Well, Your Honor, I had some court-ordered debt that it needed to be paid to Sacramento, and to me that was a very urgent matter and needed to be taken care of, and that's why I got the loan from her to pay them.
Do you agree that you owe her the $100 on the original loan?
If she says I still owe her $100, I guess maybe I am $100 short, because the last payment that I made to her was $200, and I believe it should have been $300.
Okay. So you acknowledge that perhaps you owe her $100. She says that you do. But she doesn't want $100. She wants $1,600. You're going to tell me why.
Because my mother at the bingo hall came up to me, you can see this on the bingo paper, with this, and she said, Dee, can you read this and then let me know something? Well, per her contract, it states here, $500 for court fines. Then it also says $500 that she owes the state. Well, then her total at the bottom is $1,500. I said, Mom, what do you need the other $500 for? Oh, miscellaneous. I said, oh, it's for Jackson, right? Because she likes to go gamble in Jackson outside of the bingo hall.
Okay.
So, anyways, per her contract, it says, if you would like to read it, Judge, the payment would be paid as follows. It's here starting May the 3rd, $200.
Just a second. She acknowledges she owes you $100 on the original $1,500 loan.
Yes.
But you want $1,600.
Yes, because that's why I loaned her the money. She agreed to pay me $3,000 back.
So she agreed to pay you double the loan, 100% interest. Is that right? And that's what you want?
That's what I want.
When did you make her the loan?
On April 26th.
Of what year?
Of 2005.
And when did she finish paying you the $1,400?
When did I have to press her to finish paying me?
When did she pay you?
Let me see. She did not pay in August 3rd because she spent it in Las Vegas.
Listen to me.
Okay, I did hear your question. But
listen to me. If you heard my question, give me the answer. When did she finish paying?
The 18th.
Of what month?
August.
Now, did you have a reasonable relationship with your mother before?
Outside of being her banker, no. We just talk whenever we see each other.
The laws of this country, in each jurisdiction, preclude, do not allow people to charge usurious interest rates.
She made the contract.
Listen, I want you to open up, put on your listening ears.
They're here.
Courts will not enforce a contract with usurious interest rates. They're against the law.
Okay, fine. Well,
good. Then she owes you $100.
I don't feel that's correct because even if you use a credit card to get the money, there are 22.99% interest.
And?
So what's the difference? She's not paying me any interest. I didn't loan it to her just as a gift.
Let me tell you what the law says, just so that you're aware of it.
Please enlighten me.
I'm going to enlighten you, and I'm going to do it quickly because I have other fish to fry today. The law says that if you make a contract that's against the law, and it is against the law to charge too much interest, then the courts will not enforce that contract with any interest.
Oh, it's nice to know the law.
Good. Now you know it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $100, which you acknowledge you owe her. That's all.
Carolyn Doyle is suing her ex-boyfriend, Matthew Peterson, for a loan to fix his teeth. Matthew says he helped Carolyn fix her house.
Miss Doyle, you used to live with this gentleman. How long did you live with him?
Matthew and I started dating July 4th of 1999, and he lived with myself and my children off and on for a total of about 2 years. 1 year, then moved out, then moved back in for a year, then moved back out.
And during that time, which we'll pinpoint better later, you claim that without your authorization, he forged your name as a co-signer to a loan for some dental work that he wanted.
I don't know if he ever signed my name. He did open an account and took out a dental loan using my Social Security number, and it shows up on my credit record as
Okay, but you never signed it.
No, I did not.
Well, so somebody signed your name to it.
I never saw the documents, Your Honor. Okay.
I assume he has the documents somewhere in his pocket. In any event, he didn't pay the loan?
Correct.
And it's negatively impacted on your credit?
Correct.
You no longer are together, and you want him to pay the bill?
Correct.
Smile pretty, Mr. Peterson. What was wrong with your teeth?
2 porcelain crowns on my front teeth, and both of them were fractured. And
So it was cosmetic work.
more or less, without them, though, I just have 2 posts there,
Not attractive, but clearly you can live that way.
I suppose.
Now, when did you want to replace these 2 porcelain crowns?
I was living with it cracked for probably about a year or so, and then in the process of chewing gum, it completely broke off one afternoon, and I was left with just the post that goes under the crown, my real tooth, and it was somewhat of an emergency at that point. You know, the following morning, the dentist squeezed me in, and
Now, were you and Miss Doyle living together at the time?
no.
Were you still seeing each other?
Yes.
Exclusively?
Yes.
Any reason why you weren't living together?
We lived together when I owned my condo, and I wanted to flip that into a single-family home because I have 3 kids, and I wanted him to have a nice home with a backyard in a neighborhood, and he didn't agree with my decision to sell the condo. I was buying it on my own. He wasn't buying it with me, but he disagreed with my decision to sell the condo and buy the house. So when I sold...
just my own curiosity, why?
I think he thought things were fine the way they were, and so why move?
Okay, so that's when he moved out, but you still continued to see each other.
Correct.
So now the dentist squeezes you in August.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm listening.
Okay, I went to the dentist's office in the morning. But upon looking at the other front tooth, that was fractured as well, so they said, we have to take care of both of them. I couldn't cover it on such short notice, so they said, well, you can go ahead and apply for this in-house credit we have here, which I did, was denied. They said, do you have a co-signer? At that point, I called Carolyn, from the office, and she said, yeah, here's my number, here's the Social Security number, and I'll be back. I'll have to go down there and actually sign the document at a later date, which I don't know if that ever happened or not. And they proceeded with the work, and that was it.
Why didn't you pay the bill?
I was making monthly payments.
Now you're looking at your shoes.
I made the first couple payments, and then I came late on one. She said, I can't have this affecting my credit payments, and then she said, let me just pay off the whole loan and you can just pay me. And then when we ultimately ended up breaking up, walked out, and that was the end of that. And I had done considerable amounts of work on her house, remodeling, fixing it up,
Which
paintings.
I paid him for.
Just, please don't interrupt.
I'm sorry.
And I just kind of figured the whole thing was a wash. It was easier just to get out of each other's lives and move on.
So you mean you stuck Miss Doyle, who is a single parent, raising 3 children, with bills for your cosmetic dentistry? I mean, you expect me to accept that, sir? And you think that I am not going to humiliate you in front of 10 million people? Go ahead.
Upon our last conversation when I left, I was served with papers days later, so there was never any opportunity to discuss any kind of payment plan. She never asked me for the money.
Why should she have to ask you for anything? How old are you?
32.
You work?
Yes, ma'am.
You have children?
No.
So whatever work you do, you just manage to take care of yourself,
Correct.
right? Now, what about Miss Doyle? Does she work?
Yes, she does.
And she takes care of 3 children?
Yes, she does.
And she runs a house? Let me ask you a question. When you were living in the house, did she have household help?
No, myself.
Did she have, yeah, I know how helpful you are. Did she have household help?
No,
Who did the laundry?
she did.
Who cleaned the bathrooms?
She did.
Who had a full-time job?
She did.
Who had 3 children?
She does.
Who had 2 cracked porcelain crowns?
That's me.
Are you embarrassed?
When you lay it out like that, yes, I am. But
Well, if your mother didn't lay it out feel like that, I'm going to lay it out feel like that. How much was your dental work?
all said and done, approximately $2,700.
How much of that did you pay?
About $300.
What kind of car do you drive?
Ford truck.
What year?
2000.
Were you making payments on it in 2004?
Yes.
Were you paying rent in 2004?
Yes.
You get where I'm going?
Yes, I do.
Peterson. Anything else you want to say?
I'd like to add just the extent of the work I did around her house. It was a verbal agreement.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Peterson. I just asked you a few questions. When you were living together, did you take a shower?
Yes.
Who cleaned the bathroom?
She did.
When you were living together, did you change your underwear at least every other day?
Yes, ma'am.
Who did the laundry?
She did.
You get
Not
my,
exclusively.
You get my drift?
I get your drift.
I won't even go into other more intimate details, sir, but I can almost guarantee you this. Believe me, you got the better end of the bargain. She knows what I mean. So do most of the other women. You owe her $2,400. Pay it. Thank you. That's all.
Susan Pruitt says neighbor Crystal Berkins owes for causing her cats to be taken away by animal control. Crystal is countersuing, claiming Susan has been harassing her.
Miss Pruitt, you and the defendant are neighbors. Yes. She recently moved to the neighborhood, is that right?
Correct.
You have children?
Yes, ma'am.
How many children do you have?
1 at home.
And you?
8.
Are they all living with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, it's a shame that you two people got off to a bad start, but according to what I've read, Miss Pruitt, you did just that, get off to a bad start. You don't like each other, that is clear. However, your complaint is you have cats. Cat had kittens. Miss Berkins found herself in possession of 3 of your kittens because they strayed onto her property, I assume. They're allowed to roam free?
They were in the front yard. Yes, ma'am.
Whatever. They weren't in your house. They got to her house. She corralled them, called animal control, and said, I have these 3 stray cats. They came and picked them up, and now they're at animal control, and you don't have the money to get them out. And you claim that this is a form of harassment. She did it with another one of your cats that got onto her property. Ms. Berkins says one of your cats scratched her child, and you should have kept your cats in your house. If you didn't keep them in your house and they come onto her property, she has every right to corral them and call animal control. That's your defense. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said not only that, but she's been harassing you by sending nasty letters to neighbors and filing false police reports about you. You have a counterclaim. When did you move to the neighborhood, Miss Berkins?
In May.
2005.
And I gather that your children played together, or some of your children played together, at least initially. Is that right?
When I first moved in, everything was great. We barbecued together. You know.
So what happened?
Well, little things started happening with the kids, and like one day one of the kids said fart, and she came over and had a problem with that. I mean, she blew up and said she was not going to have that language in her house. Personally, I'm
I don't
sorry.
care what personally. Go ahead. Tell me just the facts. Ma'am.
Okay, anyway, and then I started getting different letters with different things being said in them.
From whom?
Miss Pruitt.
Well, let me see them.
Okay. Also, an apology letter that my son wrote her for something that he said in her home on Father's Day.
What is this long letter? What is this?
That's what she does. She sits and just writes me letters like that. Just 6 pages, 7 pages, 8 pages. I guess she thinks she's a novelist.
These are all ridiculous letters. What happened with this relationship that you believe caused her to steal your cats?
Okay. When they first moved in May of '05, everything was okay for a couple of weeks, and then red flags started showing. Yes, I did complain to Chris about the kids' language. We don't use the kind of language, no matter what it is. If
Okay,
it's
so you
vulgar.
complained about the language.
I complained about the language. Other things like the children not respecting our home. And then her 14-year-old told me that her and her husband had arrest warrants. That's why they left Maryland. And I was concerned about that because we were neighbors. And so I emailed the sheriff's department and the county they were from, and he emailed me back and confirmed that. Which
Do you have a copy of the email?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me see it, please.
A couple weeks after that,
Just a second.
Okay.
Just a second. Okay.
Okay, well, a couple weeks after that, I had called Crystal to retrieve a toy that belonged to my son. And as soon as I got out, I said, Chris, can you have one of the kids bring it back over next door? It started the cussing, the F and B. Hank, what are you doing calling me, you F and B? So I hung up the phone. I called the police
Had you been
department.
contacted by the Maryland authorities?
No, ma'am. It's all taken care of.
Well, she has emails from the authority in Maryland that indicate that both you and your husband failed to complete the community service portion of a probation.
Right.
And as a result of that, warrants were outstanding for your arrest. That according to the police in Maryland, they did not intend to extradite you for that, but they said, and these had to do with, according to the police, bad checks. With their gratuitous advice, don't lend them any money, or take any checks, and stay clear.
Right.
Now, my question to you is, were you notified by anyone in Maryland that they had located you?
No. She comes screaming at me on 4th of July, I'm going to have you locked up and take your kids from you. So my kids are outside playing in a sprinkler. One of them said the F word again, fart, and she's like, that's it, I've had it. She said, I'm calling your landlord, and I'm getting you out of here. And she started freaking out, so I went and told my husband, I said, she's losing it again. I said, let's just go. So we spent 4th of July weekend in a hotel. My kids didn't even get to pop fireworks. They were miserable. She tried to take my daughter from me when we first moved in. She told my daughter she was going to
Okay, so you went to a motel, Miss Perkins.
her name.
Listen to me. You went to a motel.
Yes.
That night. When, for the first time, did you learn that Miss Pruitt had contacted the Maryland authorities?
4th of July. We were out there trying to have a good time.
Oh, just a second. On the 4th of July, did she tell you that?
She screamed it across the yard.
When, for the first time, did you call animal control and her cats?
Right here, I have that date
Give me the
also.
date.
Here's the picture.
Just tell me what the date
Okay,
is.
the first time is the 9th, August
What?
9th.
So after the 4th of July. Now tell me where you found the cat that day.
In the yard, right under the bush, outside the carport.
Outside your house?
Yes, ma'am.
So what did you do?
Well, I didn't, but my daughter did. She picked it up and she put it in the cage, and we called animal control. But that cat, they retrieved. They went and got that cat.
Is this the same daughter that was scratched by the cat?
Yes, ma'am.
Which cat scratched your daughter?
The 3 that came on the property after.
Okay. Miss Pruitt, did animal control indicate to you that you should keep these cats in your house?
No, ma'am, they did not indicate that.
Well, they should have.
May I say one thing?
Sure.
Crystal had said that I
don't care about a daughter.
Okay, well,
I couldn't have cared less about that whole tirade. Miss Pruitt, let me tell you what my problem is with your complaint. I read that she called animal control on one cat that had strayed onto her property. That would have said to any intelligent person, if I don't want my cats taken by animal control, I better keep them in the house.
I keep them in the house.
Well, you didn't. She didn't come in your house and get them.
The kittens stayed in the house. The day that they got this one, I don't know why Calico was outside. The second time they got the kittens, we were outside all day long. Within 30 minutes after we went in the house, whenever he went to look for them, the cats were gone.
Miss Pruitt, Miss Perkins did not come into your house and steal your cats.
No, she didn't.
Where did you find the cats the second time, Miss Perkins?
Same place. They go under that bush right outside the carport. They all get up under there. And I have a copy of the bite case, Your Honor, if you would like to see it.
I would.
Can I say something?
Sure. Who are you?
I'm Chris's husband, Gerald.
I figured you were, because you got very exercised when we started talking about these warrants. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that Miss Pruitt, she bribed my 14-year-old son as far as finding out information about us. She bribed him with a $60 PlayStation game at night.
Mr. Perkins, listen to me very carefully, sir. Your son should not know that his parents have outstanding arrest warrants for them. You know why he shouldn't know that his parents have outstanding arrest warrants? Because his parents shouldn't have outstanding arrest warrants. You don't blame son, you don't blame Miss Pruitt. If you have an outstanding arrest warrant, and if your wife has an outstanding arrest warrant, you go back to the state of Maryland and you take care of it. Isn't that right?
Yes, I agree.
Good. And it seemed to me, I would want to know as your neighbor, if you're in the habit of writing bad checks. I don't know why your son felt compelled to tell that to Miss Pruitt.
He was mad at me because I wouldn't buy the game for him. I told him he had to earn the money.
Exactly.
And she went and bought
And
it for
she
him.
said, I'll buy it for you, Brett, but I want to know why your parents are here. And we didn't run.
Listen to me very carefully. You left Maryland without completing your community service.
25
which was
hours.
I don't care whether it was a half hour. If you wrote bad checks, you were given an opportunity, I assume, to stay out of jail. And the condition of that was that you perform community service. So not only did you commit a crime, but you committed a crime, and then you said to the justice system, I'm just moving. I'm leaving. Before you completed what you promised to complete. Because when the judge sentenced you, the judge said, this is what I'm going to do. Do you promise to complete community service? And you say, I'll do whatever is necessary to stay out of jail. If you had said, we're not going to do community service, they would have put you in jail for 60 days or for 90 days or for 6 months, and then you wouldn't have to do community service. You're supposed to do the right thing and teach your children to do the right thing. Why are you looking at me with some look of incredulity? Am I saying something that doesn't sound right to you?
No, ma'am.
Good.
May I say something, Your Honor?
No.
Okay.
No, because I just don't understand you. If they took one of your cats and they called animal control, so you know that they were angry with you, and they were angry with you in all probability because you had stirred up this muck about the Maryland warrants, then it would seem to me if you value your kittens, you keep them in the house. They did not come to your house to steal your cats, Miss Pruitt.
I offered the cats back.
You did not offer the cats.
Yeah.
Whether they did or whether they didn't, my issue is whether or not you have a lawsuit. And you don't. They have a right, if these animals are on their property, especially since they say that one of the kittens scratched their daughter. Whether they did or whether they didn't, and whether they were being vindictive or not. They might have been. They might have said, listen, she stirred up all this muck about us. We're going to call animal control if her cats come on our property again. It's your responsibility as a pet owner not to put your animals in harm's way. And if you have cats and you choose to let them be outside cats, somebody, them, other neighbors, some stranger 2 blocks away is going to take your cat and is going to say, I don't want this cat coming in my house. I don't want this cat coming around underneath and spraying and making mess around my house. If people want to have animals, they have to take care of them. And if you didn't take care of them to the extent that these people managed to get their hands on them, you have no lawsuit.
I know what you're saying, but I also know these people, and they did do it in a vindictive way. And
they may have, but we don't have a special court.
For the kids
we don't have a special court for that. We don't have a special court for motives. I can say that it really wasn't the right thing to do. You could have just shooed them away and kept shooing them away. That's not what they pay me for.
Right.
They pay me to make a judgment as to whether or not you have a lawsuit, and you don't. Neither do you. You don't like each other. It's unfortunate that you don't like each other. Do you still live there?
Absolutely, and I'm not moving.
Good. Mr. and Mrs. Perkins, if I were you, I would go back to the state of Maryland and say, I'm sorry we left. I'd like to get this warrant discharged. I would like to complete my community service. I'm going to do that when my husband next has a 2-week vacation so that I can travel to all 50 states without risk of being arrested. Do I make myself clear? Good. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Bernice Fallick is suing her granddaughter's ex-boyfriend, 25-year-old Marvin Watson, for unpaid loans and collect calls from jail.
This is your granddaughter.
Yes, it is.
Your first name is?
Nicole.
Who do you live with, Nicole?
I live on my own right now, Your Honor.
Where were you living when you were involved with Mr. Watson?
I was living at my grandmother's house, Your Honor.
How old are you?
I'm 24 years old, Your Honor.
What do you do for a living, Nicole?
I'm a hostess.
Hostess where?
At the Outback Steakhouse.
For how long?
I've been with that company, Your Honor, for 8 years.
So you have a responsible job?
Yes, Your Honor.
You have any children?
No, Your Honor.
Perfect. So you have no children, you have a responsible job.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ever had any trouble with drugs, alcohol?
No, Your Honor, I have not.
So far, is all that correct, Miss Fowler?
Absolutely, yes, Your Honor.
She only had one lapse.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes.
Your Honor, I have to say, otherwise my mom will kill me, that she loves you. Now we can go on.
Thank you.
Very much. More than you, actually. Grandma, she wishes that was her mom. She would have done better in life. Okay, anyway.
All right, Miss Fallick.
Yes.
This is what your lawsuit is about. Mr. Watson somehow wangled his way into your granddaughter's heart.
Yes.
And then he went off to jail.
Yes.
For what?
For violating a restraining order.
What kind of restraining order?
No contact.
No contact with who?
With my daughter's mom.
And she got a restraining order because you were abusive?
No.
Because you were stalking her?
No.
Well, how did she get a restraining order?
She didn't want me to see my daughter.
How many times did you violate the restraining order?
Just once.
How badly did you violate it?
I went to the daycare and picked up my daughter.
So you had an order that said you weren't allowed to go near the child unsupervised as well?
Until I appeared in court, yes.
And you didn't like somebody telling you what to do?
Yes.
Got it. I'm just trying to develop the personality here. Now, Mr. Watson, was that the first time you were ever incarcerated? What word didn't you understand, Mr. Watson? Was that the first time you were ever incarcerated?
No, it's not.
What were you incarcerated for previously, sir?
For assault.
Assaulting who?
Someone I don't know.
A stranger?
Yep.
Where did you assault this stranger?
At a bar.
All right. Now, did the mother of your child allege, I didn't say you did it, but did the mother of your child allege that you also assaulted her?
No.
That you threatened her?
No.
She just said, I want a restraining order, and didn't allege anything.
Yes. No.
Well, we sort of, you know, in the family court where I used to work, we used to give out those restraining orders where there was no proof, nobody asked for anything. We'd have every other Monday. We just said, anybody wants a restraining order, you come on in, you don't have to say anything. We just give them out. Now, how long were you incarcerated for, sir?
For 2 years.
You were incarcerated for 2 years for violating a restraining order?
Oh, well, the first time when I got arrested, for the restraining order, I was only in jail for 3 months.
2 years for an assault?
Yeah.
Must have been a pretty bad assault. And the second time you were in jail for 3 months. That must have been some violation. And while you were in jail, Miss Fallick says she did everything that she could to make it easier for you. You called her house 2-3 times a day, collect. And how much was your phone bill?
A total of $563.
Is that for the 3 months?
It was 3.5 months.
3.5 months. And then she gave her granddaughter money so that she could put the money in your bank account because you didn't like the prison food.
Yes.
Tell me what he said to you.
His exact words were, I'm losing weight. I cannot eat the prison food. I need to buy food in the wherever. I don't know anything about prison.
Commissary.
And also, he said he needed toiletries, and he played on my sympathies. I really felt sorry for him. And he asked for $20 a week, which I gave him all the time he was in jail. And he said to me, I have $4,000 in the bank. When I come out, I will pay you. And I hear his words in my ears, I will pay you back. Also, one other thing I did, The night he was arrested, he called my house. He asked if we could please pick up his keys at the jail and bring his car, because he was afraid it would be vandalized, and bring his car to my development and put it in my parking spot, which I did until he came out.
How much did that cost you each month?
I broke it down. It was $45 a month, but December, he came out around December 18th. I just did half, and that came out to $157.50.
And the $20 a week, how much was that, Miss Fallick?
$260.
You used to go to visit him?
Yes, Your Honor. I went a few times to visit him. That's when I would go to leave the money on the books, Your Honor. I would do that all on the same day, Your Honor.
Well, what happened when he got out of jail?
He got out of jail, Your Honor, and he did make an attempt. He paid my grandma $31. He said that was his tips that he made for moving, Your Honor. And then after that, Your Honor, he said that we're not getting the rest of our money and to take him to court.
Why is that, Mr. Watson?
I never agreed to paying Ms. Fallick back or Nicole back any money. I never asked any of them for the money that they was giving me. Nicole offered to help me out. Nicole said that don't worry about any of the costs, it's inexpensive. I don't owe them anything. She was being nice out of kindness of her heart. I never asked them for anything.
Who's kind hearts?
Out of hers and her grandma's, I guess. I never asked them for anything, not one dime.
Did you have to, sir, give permission to have the jail authorities turn over your car keys to Nicole and or her grandmother? Or do you think that the jail turned over your car keys to anybody who said, I came for his car keys? Do you know what I'm talking to you about? Do you know what I'm saying to you? You will not think faster than I, Mr. Watson. You are not that smart. When you were incarcerated, they came and picked up your car keys. Now, do you think that the prison authorities just turn over your car keys to anybody who walks in and says, I want Watson's car keys?
No.
So you had to have given permission for one or both of them to come and get your car keys. Is that right?
I didn't just turn over my car
Just a second.
keys.
Just answer my question.
Yes.
Now, what were they supposed to do with your car?
Nicole was, my mother was picking up my car.
They would not have turned over your car keys to these two ladies if your mother was supposed to come and pick up your car, because I got news looks like them.
Okay.
You get me?
I get you.
I don't like liars, Mr. Watson. I don't like criminals, I don't like liars, and when there's a combination, it's deadly. Miss Fallick is not telling me any sort of a lie when she said that she spoke to you and you said you don't like the prison food, you're losing weight. Now, she may have been operating out of the goodness of her heart. I think she was.
So why would I
I think she was.
For toilet paper, they give you toilet paper in there. She just said that I said I didn't have any toilet paper. They give you toilet paper
not
too.
toilet paper. Not toilet
What did she
paper.
say when she said it?
I'm going to tell you what she said, sir.
Okay.
You know, you got to go to a little advanced education. There's a difference between toilet paper and toiletries.
Okay.
Mr. Smarty Pants.
Okay.
You know the difference?
I know now. You just told me.
Well, what are toiletries? Did you make an error in judgment, Nicole?
Yes, Your Honor.
Don't repeat it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $980. That's all.
Dana Kellogg claims ex-boyfriend Mark Kitchenmaster owes for child support. Mark says he and Dana were living together off and on, so he owes nothing.
Ms. Kellogg, I've read your complaint. You and the defendant have a child together, separated, and at some point reconciled. How old is your child? When did you reconcile?
Middle of July.
July of 07. And when you reconciled, you moved back to his house?
Yes, I did.
With the 8-year-old?
Yes, I did.
At the time, Mr. Kitchenmaster
Yes.
had a payroll deduction order levied against his salary for child support.
Correct.
And how much money was being taken out of your check?
$127 a week.
This is your complaint. You lived together for 2.5 months. It didn't work out. According to you, Mr. Kitchenmaster threw you out unceremoniously. So you want some sort of wrongful eviction. That's not going to happen. You were paying rent?
No. I was providing towards the expenses in the home and giving Mr. Kitchenmaster his child support back.
Well, anyway, you didn't have a lease with him. This is not a wrongful eviction. So that part of your complaint is dismissed.
It's fine.
It is your claim that the money was taken out of his check. You got it. You gave him that money back in cash.
Yes, I did.
Just a second. And when you finally left the home, because it didn't work out, Mr. Kitchenmaster went to the state, advised them that you had been living with him for 2.5 months. The state stopped your child support for 2.5 months.
Front of court.
And
yes.
you want that money back because it is your claim that you returned the money to him.
Yes, ma'am.
In cash. Mr. Kitchenmaster says you never gave him any money in cash. You may have given money in cash for expenses for the house, but it was not a return of the child support. Is that your claim?
Yes.
I assume, Ms. Kellogg, that you have bank records that are going to indicate to me $127 a week coming into your account, and then a cash withdrawal of $127 within a day or 2 or 3 of
the same day.
The deposit.
I have the same day.
Can I see it,
and my
please?
witnesses as well.
Can I see it, please?
I had a deposit of... Okay.
Okay. I see that $127 came in, and I see on the same date $100 came out.
I withdrew $100 each Monday, and I gave him $100 of that child support, minus the $27.
Just a minute. What other money did you give him?
I gave him money out of my payroll.
Just a second. I mean, you were living there with your child, and I assume paying part of the expenses.
Yes.
Because this looks to me as if every time he sent you child support, you took $100 and you said, here is for my contribution to the household.
No.
So you say that you gave him additional money.
I did.
Show me.
I gave him cash money out of my
Show
pay.
me.
I bought groceries, and I took care of the children fully while I was there.
What did you pay towards rent?
He didn't ask for rent.
Well, what was this $100 for?
That $100 was to give him back his child support.
You
he
didn't
was
give him
providing.
back his child support. His child support was $127. You only gave him $100. You have a witness? Just a second. Just a second. I want to hear a witness because somebody wants to raise their hand and tell me something. So I want to hear what you have to say. Who are you?
I'm Brittany. I'm her daughter.
Yeah. Did you move in too?
Yeah.
Just a minute. Hold on a second. So it wasn't just you and the 8-year-old. It was you and your 8-year-old and your daughter.
Yeah, it was 3 kids. Me, my sister, and my brother.
So you brought 2 other children with you?
Yes.
And how much were you paying for their support?
I was paying for their support completely.
How? Show me.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Her 22-year-old son also moved back in with us for a while?
No, I
No,
want you
he
to
didn't.
show me, listen to me, I want you to show me somewhere in your bank records that you took out each month and gave him money for the support of yourself and your 2 other children.
I cashed my payroll, and we discussed what the bills were, and I paid him towards phone bills and groceries, and I took care of my children completely as far as clothing or anything that they needed that whole duration.
What
I
was
there.
this $100 for, Mr. Kitchenmaster?
She said that it was my child support, returning my child support, and there was no bill paying. I received $580 from her, and that was it.
$580 in total for the
Cash.
2.5 months that you lived there, and that includes these $100. Does that include this
That was those $100.
That's not
these
true.
$100 payments?
Yes, $580 total, and it would have been $600, but she had to borrow $20 back because she didn't have the money. She didn't have any money. She told
That's
me.
not true, Your Honor.
Who are
I
you?
work at
Well-
Who are you?
Mrs. Kellogg's witness.
Come up. Tell me what you know. Tell me your name.
My name is Natalie Blahos. I am a friend of Dana, and I am a friend of Mr. Kitchenmaster. At one point, when they got into an argument, and they were fighting, and they were splitting up and breaking up, I went to Mr. Kitchenmaster's house, and I spoke to him, and his main concern was that he wasn't getting his child support back. And I said, isn't Dana giving you the child support every week? And he said to me, yes, she is, but she's keeping gas money. And I said, well, what is she keeping? He said, she's keeping $27. I said, well, she does have to go back and forth to work. Part of the child support is to make her able to support the children that she has.
That's not true. That's not what it's for. The child support is only for the child, not for her.
That's right.
He was telling me...
Just a second. Only for the child.
Well, I'm wrong. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just telling you if that's what you think. That's not what the child support is for.
Thank you. But he did tell me that he was getting child support back.
You're not following what I'm saying. How was she paying the expenses, her share of rent for herself and 3 children, her share of gas, electric, phone, all of those other things, and if what you're telling me is that that's the $100 that you were contributing to the household...
That's not all I was contributing.
Well, then you
ma'am.
have to show me. How much were you making in your job?
I gross $800 a pay. I have a pay stub here.
How much were you bringing home each week, every 2 weeks?
Your Honor, I can't testify. I don't mean to interject, but I can't testify to this because I didn't live in the house.
I understand that. I'm not asking you that question. I'm asking her that question.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Kellogg, go ahead.
I contribute everything I make towards
bills. Would you please answer my question?
What was that?
How much were you bringing home every week, every 2 weeks?
Around $540 every 2 weeks, and I make my own car payments and pay.
Just a second. $540 every 2 weeks.
Yes.
Now, what's your car payment?
$187 a month.
Insurance?
$100 a month.
That's $287 right off the top. You have how many children that lived with you?
3.
3, including the 8-year-old?
Yes.
Did you ever have an older child that moved in for a while?
He came and stayed for 1 week. He lives in Traverse City.
Okay. So at some point, there you had 4 children living there.
Well, he wasn't living there. He was visiting.
He was eating, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Not provided by Mr. Kitchen Master.
Just a second. Your children, food, gas, electric, let's say it's $100 a week. That's $400 a month. $687. So that leaves you $300 left over for clothes, expenses, school, lunches, after-school activities. There's no way that you were giving him any money for rent. There's no way. You don't have money. You had absolutely no money.
I gave him cash on all the bills that he had.
Fine. Okay. Listen, I absolutely understand what you're talking about, sir. She doesn't get it. She says it's a return of your child support. It wasn't. It was to support herself and her other children.
Right. You're right.
And
I went to the front of the court, and I pulled up all my statements of what I pay a weekly.
now, I understand. It costs more to run a household with 6 people in it than $100. I got it. How many people from your end lived in the house?
I live by myself.
So it was just the plaintiff and her either 3 or 4 children, one of whom is yours?
Yes.
Okay? And for that, she was contributing $100 a week?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah, your case is dismissed, madam. That's all. He's had an absolute right to get his money back. That's all.
18-year-old student Nikki Frazier and guardian Sam Suter are suing Nikki's mother, Stacy Hebb, for child support costs. Nikki says her mom won't turn over child support she receives from her father.
Mr. Suter, your complaint is that you and your family were nothing but kind to the defendant. She was having some difficulty, and she was unemployed several years ago. Her daughter and your daughter were friends since grade school, and you volunteered to give her a home.
Yes, ma'am.
When she was 16. How did you do in their home, in the Suter home? Did you do okay?
Yes.
Did you graduate yet?
Oh, I graduate in a couple weeks.
What are you doing after graduation?
I want to go to college.
How did you do in high school?
I make good grades.
She's been AB honor roll all through high school.
Did you apply to college?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Because the application fees are like $50 for each application, and my mom told me she'd help me pay for them, but she never helped me pay for it.
So, Mr. Suter, this is your lawsuit. Ms. Fraser lived with you for 2 years, and you got no support for her from her mother. You did not even seek support.
No, ma'am.
But then you found out that Ms. Hebb was getting support for Nikki from Nikki's father, and you feel as if that's unfair.
Somewhat, yes.
This is not rocket science, Ms. Hebb. How long have you been divorced from Nikki's father?
Since she was about 6 or 7.
Do you have other children?
Yes, ma'am.
Are the other children also the product of this marriage?
No, ma'am.
And how much do you receive from Nikki's father for her support?
$50 a week.
What did you do with the money since 2003?
When she has called and said that she didn't have any food in the house and she needed me to take her to eat, I would feed her. If she's needed personal hygiene items, I've taken her. I've paid her cell phone bills. And yes, I did tell her that I would pay for her application fees. She never came to me and said, I've applied here and I need
I'm
the
not
money."
worried about college application fees. How do you support yourself?
I'm a live-in nanny.
You think you have an obligation to support your daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
So that the things you bought for her, the few toiletries you bought for her, or paying a cell phone bill, you did that for your daughter because you're her mother. That's what you do.
Yes, ma'am.
The $50 a week that you were getting from her father should have gone to the Suter family.
He never asked for support, or I would have given it to him.
Why does he have to ask? Did you ever say to him, Miss Hebb, Mr. Suter, I get money for Nikki's support from her father. It's not right that I keep it. I'm going to turn it over to you when I get it.
No, ma'am, I didn't. I instead, like I said, whenever she would call and said that she needed things, I would take care of her.
Well, that's what you did for her, because you're her mother. She has two parents, a mother and a father. You're the mother. You work. If you have to take care of a few items, if you happen to take care of a few items for your daughter, that's very nice of you. The other $50 a week, if her father knew that she wasn't living in your home, did your father know you weren't living?
He just found out recently because I didn't have his number to get a hold of him.
If her father knew, I guarantee you, her father wouldn't have said, well, I'm going to send her money.
Her father has known. She's gone and seen him since she's lived with Mr. Suter.
I'm just curious. Not that I'm taking this for the truth of what you're going to tell me, but just my own curiosity. Did he ever say to you, if he knew that she wasn't living with you, I'd like to send the money to Mr. Suter?
No, ma'am.
Never did?
No, ma'am.
He must have had a lobotomy. Ms. Hebb, this is not a difficult case. It doesn't even test my academic prowess. The last 2 years, your daughter has been living with the Suter family, and you've collected $50 a week, roughly $2,500 a year. The Suters are suing you for $5,000, because that's approximately what you've collected over the time that your daughter has been living with the Suters from her father, and that money should have been turned over to the Suter family immediately. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $5,000. That's all. Make those college applications.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Pamela Beverly is suing the mother of her daughter's schoolmate, Rhonda Mayo, for medical bills and pain and suffering. Pamela claims 12-year-old Jessica Mayo injured her daughter at school.
Miss Beverly, this case really involves your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
You weren't there when this incident happened, but it is your claim that the defendant's daughter injured your daughter. You want her to pay the medical bills.
Yes, ma'am.
But you weren't there. You don't know. Let's have the girls up and the mom seated, please. Tell me your name.
Crystal Beverly.
How old are you, Crystal?
13.
Jessica Mayo, I'm 12 years old.
Okay, Crystal, why don't you tell me when this happened? What date?
I think March 27th.
Were you friends?
Yes.
How long have you been friends?
Since the first day of school.
So since September?
Yes.
And this was March, so you've been friends for a long time?
Yes, ma'am.
You like each other?
Yes, ma'am.
So tell me what happened.
We were walking down to the bus for dismissal, and when we were stopping off the sidewalk, she had booty bumped me, and I fell.
Now, what is a booty bump?
It's when you bump somebody with your butt, you go like this.
Just like that?
Yes, if she did it harder, and then that caused me to fall.
Show me.
We were down from the sidewalk. She went like that, and I fell. And then she walked over to the sign that said Crittenton, and I laid there crying. And then one of my other friends came up to school and helped me get to the bus.
That's okay.
And you had to have surgery on your kneecap?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's hear your version of what happened.
We were coming down the stairs of the school in the afternoon. We were going to the bus stop. Then I gave her a booty bump, and we were still talking and laughing and walking. Then she tripped over her own footstep.
That's not true.
So you're telling me that you gave her a booty bump?
Yes.
You went like that?
Yes.
You weren't angry with her?
No.
And you continued to talk?
Yes, we were still talking and laughing and walking.
And it was later that she fell?
Yes, and she fell over her own foot.
Would you step up, please? Miss Beverly, I want you to tell me the exact conversation you had with your daughter when she got home.
It was on March the 24th, Your Honor, and she told me that they were walking to the bus stop and Jessica booty bumped her and she fell on her knee. I thought it was just a bad sprain, so I didn't take her to the emergency room until the day after.
You have the medical report, please?
Just the medical report.
What were your unreimbursed medical expenses?
It was $1,083.
All right, Miss Mayor, why don't you stand up with your daughter?
Your Honor, may I say something else?
Yes.
The day after I came from the emergency room, before I spoke to Miss Mayo, I spoke to Jessica to see where the story's the same. Jessica told me the exact same thing. She booty bumped Crystal, and she fell and hurt her knee.
Is that right?
That's not true.
Okay. You have anything you want to say to me?
Yes, ma'am. When Jessica had told me that her and Crystal were
playing at the bus stop and that Crystal had fallen. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." I didn't know how serious it was until after Mrs. Beverly spoke with me on the phone. And she did tell me that Jessica and Crystal were playing and Crystal fell.
Well, they were. There's no question in my mind that your daughter did not intend to cause injury to her friend, right?
Right.
But sometimes when you fool around, that happens. I mean, there's no issue that your daughter did not intentionally harm Miss Mayo's little girl. But they were fooling around, and she gave her a
tap. Yes, a bump.
And she fell. And she didn't fall afterwards. She's making up. She fell then. She didn't mean to hurt her. It wasn't an intentional thing. It was, as Crystal said when she first started, an accident. That's the way you described it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you lost your balance when she gave you that push.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Okay. That, Miss Mayo, suggests to me that you should be more than willing to contribute to the unreimbursed medical expenses that your daughter's fooling around caused. Because but for the fact that she gave her a nudge, she would not have tripped and fallen, and she would not have had this injury. Certainly, you are not entitled to pain and suffering, Miss Beverly, from the defendant, because I don't believe that this was an intentional act. I think that these two young girls were friends. I believe that in all probability, your daughter has done this booty bumping ever to other people.
Yes, ma'am.
Fortunately, nobody got hurt. Do you understand, Miss Beverly?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,083. Thank you.
Christy Wise says ex-boyfriend Nick Knox owes for 2 different loans. Nick claims Christy was never his girlfriend.
Ms. Wise, you and Mr. Knox dated for a period of time, not very long, 6 months or so?
Yes.
According...
Not true. Never.
I'm not talking to you. And according to your complaint, during that time, you made a series of loans to him for various things. Gambling debt, some DUI fines that he had because he had lost his license. While Mr. Knox acknowledges that you gave him gifts, he says none of them were loans. None of them involved gambling. So, when did the two of you start this relationship?
I met him online and on a website called MySpace. My friends told me it was a good place to meet people, so I signed up and I got a message from him. I got the message at the beginning of January.
January of 2005?
Yes.
When did you give him this first chunk of money?
July.
So between January of 2005 and July, there were no loans?
Correct.
Did you see him? Were you dating?
We were not dating at that point. We only dated for like a month.
What month?
Month of June to July.
So between January when you met and June, did you communicate on the internet or not at all?
We talked on the phone. I went up and visited him, and we talked online too.
But in June you started dating?
Yes.
And the first money that you gave him was in July?
Correct.
That should have been a clue. What was the money for?
It was for, he went out and gambled when he was out drinking, and he gambled $1,000 and only had $500.
All right.
He called me and he told me about it.
I want you to tell me exactly what he said to you when he called you.
He told me that he had went gambling and he bet $1,000 on a card game, and he only had $500, and the guy was going to come over the next day and physically harm him if he didn't have the money. And he didn't have the money the next day. He called me and told him that the guy had came over and physically harmed him, and then I went up the day after and gave him the $400.
That's a little stilted, what you just said to me. First he called and told you that if you didn't give him the money, he was going to get hurt.
Yes.
You didn't give him the money. Then he called you back and told you that the man came and actually hurt him?
Yes.
How did he hurt him?
He brought a couple of his buddies over and they got in a fight outside his house, I guess. That's what I was informed of.
When you went up there, were there any physical signs of his being assaulted?
Yes, his jaw was bruised.
Was?
Yes.
Black and blue?
Yeah.
And you gave him the $400?
Yes.
What did he say to you?
He said, "Thank you, I will repay you as soon as I can."
When was the next sum of money that you gave him?
August 15th. It was for his DUI for $250.
Tell me how that came about.
He called me and he informed me that he did not have enough to make his monthly payment for his DUI, and he asked if he could borrow some money. And I said, "How much do you need?" He said, $250. So I said, okay.
Well, did you know he had had a DUI?
Yes, he informed me.
When?
Back in January.
How did he tell you he had a DUI?
We just were talking, and he just told me we got on the subject of driving, and he's like, "Well, I got a DUI."
Did he drive?
No.
So you did the driving?
Correct.
When did you lose your license?
November of last year.
How many DUIs have you had?
Just that one.
Must have been a bad one. Were you in an accident?
No. I was swerved over. I went left to center, and the police officer drove by me and gave me a DUI. I did the sobriety test and stuff, and then went to court. I tried fighting it, but then we just really gave up on it because I admitted to it, so.
Well, what do you mean you tried fighting it?
Well,
Take your hands out of your pocket.
because they wrongfully arrested me, too. They were giving me, I passed all my field sobriety tests, and I blew the legal limit, and then they were shoving me around, pushing me around, slamming me into my car, just saying a bunch of obnoxious things to me, making fun of my name. It's a bunch of stupid stuff. We tried fighting it, and then, because I had another
You tried
charge.
fighting it because?
I had more than one charge with it. I had the DUI, and I had a concealed weapon, too. It was just a pellet gun under my seat, so they're going to try and charge me with that, so they just dropped that down to nothing, and I just took the DUI.
Is this your first arrest?
Yeah.
Jacked out with the police?
Not really, no. I just...
Where had you been drinking?
I was with my girlfriend at the time then,
Yeah.
and we were at our friend's house having a couple drinks, and then I left and took her home. And then on my way home, I got in trouble.
And what kind of fine did you have to pay?
$1,500.
And how much time did you have to pay it?
2 months. I got sentenced in May of '05. I had 2 months to pay it.
Did you call her and ask her for $250?
No, she gave it to me.
So she gave you the $250?
I told her all about, we were talking on the phone. We never dated, first of all. Second of all, we were talking on the phone. I told her about my situation.
Tell me what you told her about your situation.
I just told her I got a DUI, and she's like, well...
Just a sec, she already knew that. She knew that from January. I'm asking you about the money that you were short.
Oh, I told her because she's like, well, you want to go out? I'm like, well, I have no money. I might have to save up for my fines. I'd save up for my fines and stuff. And then she's like, well, I can help you out. I want to get you back on your feet, you know. So instead of her driving all the time, I'd be able to get my license back and pay my reinstatement fee. So she told me she would help me out. She never told me I had to pay her back. She never said anything about that.
Let's say, Mr. Knox, that she didn't say you had to pay her back. Don't you think you had to pay her back?
I was going to.
Don't you think
Yes.
that's the right thing to do?
I was going to do that. Yes, I was.
Right.
That's
Good.
what I was going to do.
That's what I like to hear. I don't like to hear bums standing in front of me. I like to hear people who act responsible. Because, quite frankly, Mr. Knox, I could understand it if you said to me, you know, I met Miss Wise and I was involved with her and I cared deeply about her and we were involved in a relationship and I was short a little bit of money and she said, you know, honey, don't stress. I can advance it to you. I don't want you to worry about it. But according to you, you weren't involved with her. You never even dated. Yes, we were. You never even...
We did not date.
You never even dated. You never went out with her. So taking $250 from her, that would make you a bum. Go stand on a corner with a cup. Now I want you to tell me about the $400 for the gambling.
There was no gambling thingy. That is not true. That is just the most untrue thing I've ever heard in my entire life, actually. There was no, I got a gambling debt. I mean, I'm not a small guy. I'm not just going to have some guy come to my own house and beat me up in my own house. That's not true at all. I had no bruises on my face, nothing. I owe nobody money. The money she did give me, that was towards my DUI.
And how much was that?
That was $200. Pretty sure it was $200.
No. We're talking about two different amounts of money.
Oh.
Mr. Knox, we're talking about two different amounts of money. One was $250 for your fines, but you had additional amounts of money that you owed. Mm-hmm. How much was the second amount of money that you owed?
About $400.
All right. And what did you owe the $400 for?
My reinstatement fee on my license. My fines were already paid off by
Just
then.
a second. We're going to get there. On your best day, you are not as smart as I am on my worst day. Do you understand that?
That's true.
So while it's very possible that you took the $400 and paid your fines with it that you got from her, right? Maybe the story was, if you don't help me out, I'm going to get hurt. Now, since, Mr. Knox, you say that you were not involved in a relationship with her, and since you chose to take money from her rather than standing on the street corner with a cup, or in the alternative, getting a second job if you needed money.
I didn't...
Now listen to me. If you need extra money, what you do is you work for it. You don't ask other people who may be more smitten with you than you are with them to, when you know you have no feeling for them, just because you're a bum. Now, the only thing I'm doing to him now is hurting him a little bit, right? Right. Hopefully will make you feel a little bit better. It certainly makes me feel better. Because I don't like people who take advantage of other people. It's not nice.
I know it.
Well, then, if you know it, Why don't you pay her back?
I planned on doing that until other things started happening.
Like what?
I had to get my cell phone number changed, my instant message name changed because I work 12-hour shifts at nights. So she would call me every single night, at least a dozen times a night. I have phone bill records to prove it, that she would call me at least a dozen times a night.
What would she say when she called you?
She'd call, I wouldn't answer because I'm at work, so I can't answer my phone. So she'd just keep calling and calling.
Did you ever call her back?
No, because she'd call private numbers.
Well, then let me ask you this question, Mr.
I couldn't
Knox.
call her back,
Mr. Knox, let me ask you this question, sir. You knew how to communicate with her via the internet. And if what you wanted to do was to sever all ties with her, because according to you, she was becoming obsessive. You didn't know that because you didn't speak to her, so you don't know whether she was calling you 100 times because she said, you know, you owe me money. And if you don't want to have anything to do with me, fine, but at least give me the money you owe me.
Sometimes when she would call, I'd answer my phone, she'd say nothing about money. She'd just be like, oh, hey, what do you want to go out? That's all she'd say.
And what did you say to her?
No, I'm at work.
Fine. Why don't you just say to her, Christy, listen, I'm not interested in you socially. You have a girlfriend, or I'm involved in school and work and whatever. I know I have to give you some money, and I'm going to give it back to you, $100 a week until it's all paid off.
I tried doing that.
When did you try doing that?
I told her that I was going to, I asked her if she could send me in an email or something, her address to her house. I'd send her $100 checks every week in the mail. I told her I'd give her this, like she said she was going on vacation.
Just a second. Did he ever ask you for your address to send you money?
Yes, he did, but I had previously offered him the option to pay me every week, and he denied it.
Just a second. What did he ask you for your address for?
To mail me a check, so I didn't have to see me.
So why didn't you give it to him?
Because I asked him to do it
No,
sooner.
listen to me. So if he said to you, give me your address so I can send you a check, why didn't you give it to him?
Because he didn't want to do it when I wanted to, and I had already filed a claims court when he called me.
It was before claims
Listen,
court.
Miss Wise, don't throw the baloney at me.
Ma'am, I have a voicemail that he did send me, and it's him acknowledging he owes me money, the full amount.
Does he say what amount?
Yes, he does.
Oh, let me hear it.
The mail from the Mrs. McCord saying I owe you $1,086. Why don't we just do this? Every week I'll send you a check in the mail for $200 on the button every single week until it's paid off. I'll call you back later, and that's about it.
You hear $1,086? Good.
That's what he said.
Okay, well, that's an acknowledgement of a debt, Mr. Knox.
I knew I had to pay her back. I know
Well,
that.
then why didn't you say that to me in here and save us all a lot of time and
That's what
trouble?
I
I
was
got
gonna
other
do.
cases to handle today.
I tried settling it with her. She wouldn't. She wanted to come here.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,086. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
19-year-old Alicia Schmidt is suing her former friend, 19-year-old Stephanie Camasera, for unpaid babysitting fees. Stephanie says it's Alicia's own fault that she didn't get paid.
Do you need a shawl?
No.
Did you get confused as to where you were going today?
No.
That's the way you think you should go to court?
No.
She actually allowed you to babysit for her children?
Her child, yes.
Anyway, you claim she owes you for some babysitting. She says that the state was supposed to pay you, but you didn't fill out the appropriate paperwork. That's your defense, right?
Yeah, she filled it out, but
She filled it out wrong? I could believe
it
that.
never went through.
So your agreement was she was going to babysit for your child and she was going to get paid by the state because you were doing some work there?
I was working at Sunoco, and
What is that?
It's a convenience
What-
store.
What were you doing at the store?
Cashier.
How much were you earning?
$7.25.
An hour?
Yeah.
And how much were you bringing home every week?
Between $200 and $250.
And who else were you living with?
Just me and my son.
Were you paying rent?
Yes.
How much?
$219.
In an apartment?
Yes.
Where do you come from?
Buffalo, New York.
Isn't it cold in Buffalo?
It's getting warmer.
Now, how long did you watch the baby?
Huh? Sorry.
How long did you watch the baby?
For a month and a half.
Is that what you do for a living, babysit?
No. I
Well, what
did
do you
it because me and her have been friends since we were like 12, 13 years old, and to help her out.
Well, the state didn't pay you. So did you tell her that you thought she should pay you?
Yeah, I did. And I told her when she got her taxes back this year to give me money out of her taxes for that, and then I would leave it alone, and she didn't do that.
Did you get money back from your taxes?
Yes.
How much did you get?
$750 around.
Did you think you should give your friend some money?
I never told her I was going to pay her.
Well, you told her that she was going to get paid for watching your son.
Not out of my money.
Well, she's going to get paid out of your money. You got paid. She wasn't doing this as a favor. She was doing it because she expected to get paid. And if the state didn't pay her for some reason and you did not follow up, which I assume you didn't, is that right?
I called many times to try and see why it wasn't coming.
And so
we
did
both
you,
did.
Did you?
My case was being closed at the time.
So you didn't get an answer?
Nope.
So now you have to pay her.
Why would I pay her when I never said anything about paying her?
I just tried to explain it to you, and I want you to try to put on your listening ears. She was babysitting for your child for money. The state was supposed to pay her. She filled out the forms according to what you told me. You said you called many times. You didn't get an answer as to why they weren't paying her. And then you stopped calling because you were closing your welfare case. That doesn't mean she doesn't get paid because she did the work for you. So you have to pay her. Do you understand?
Yeah. I mean...
And you got back $750 in your taxes. So you're going to get paid, but you're not going to get paid $2,000 because that's ridiculous. You didn't earn $2,000 probably a whole year. But you have to get paid something for the work that you did. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $350. That's all. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Bail bondsman Aaron McAllister says former client Elena Zadevich owes for unpaid bail money.
What were you arrested for, Miss Zadevich?
I was arrested on false charges of domestic violence that my ex filed against me.
I didn't ask you whether they were true or not true. I asked, what were you arrested for?
I was arrested on allegations of domestic violence.
Was it the first time you were arrested?
Yes.
Look at me. Was
Yes.
it the first time you were arrested? The answer is either yes or no.
No.
Better. When was the first time you were arrested?
Several years ago.
Having nothing to do with domestic violence.
Has something to do with domestic violence.
So you have 2 arrests for domestic violence?
That's correct.
Was it the same complainant in each case?
Different.
Different. Okay. You are a bail bondsman?
Yes, Your Honor.
It is your claim that you received a call from the defendant in jail. You responded. You bailed her out of jail. At her request, she promised to pay for the bond. She did not. You want your money.
Yes.
Defendant says you're a sleazy bail bondsman and she's not paying you.
Correct.
When did you receive the call?
Sometime in the middle of the night from the county jail.
What night? I'm not Karnak. What night would
I'm
you
sorry.
like to tell me it is?
July the 15th.
In the middle of the night. You were home?
Correct. In bed.
How did you get his number?
It was posted on the wall in the county jail.
You have your home number posted in the wall in county jail?
No, ma'am. It's an office number that forwards to my cell phone in the evening and weekends.
I see. I wouldn't think that you'd want your house phone
No.
to have a number. Okay. What did the defendant say to you when she called?
That she was in jail and she had to get out. She had to get to work the next morning. If she didn't get out, she would lose her job.
What kind of job do you have?
I'm an executive assistant.
For whom?
For a small media startup.
How long have you had that job?
Close to a year.
10 months?
Something like that.
Where did you work before?
I was managing a medical spa.
Where?
Walnut Creek, California.
Okay. Have any family here?
Just my 2 children.
How old are they?
6 and 2.
They live with you?
Part-time.
Who do they live with the other part of the time?
Well, my son lives with, my daughter part-time lives with her paternal family.
Maternal or paternal?
Paternal.
Paternal. So the father's family, father's parents with her grandparents?
No, his brother and his family, they live very close by, about 10-minute drive from where I live, and she's there a lot because I work full-time.
Okay. So you had to get to work at the media startup company when you called him?
Correct.
Did you tell him that you were going to take care of paying his bail?
What happened was I told him that I didn't have any money.
No. When you
Yeah.
called him on the phone from jail, you told him I don't have any money?
Correct.
Is that right?
No.
Of course not.
Right. I wouldn't.
Of course not, because if you tell you, please bail me out of jail, but I don't have any money, and he doesn't know you from a hole in the wall, he's not getting out of his warm bed in the middle of the night. Madam.
Well, he did.
No. He did. The question was, did you tell him that you didn't have any money?
Yes, I did.
He says you didn't, and I'm saying I believe him that at that time you didn't tell him I have no money. Because if he's in business and he gets a call from a stranger. You are a stranger, right?
Correct.
That I want you to get up out of bed, drive over to the jail and bail me out. But by the way, I have no money. He'd say, call somebody else.
That's exactly what I said.
All right. I don't believe you. Go ahead.
We discussed that she had a CD, and the CD was maturing within the next 30 days, and that there would be ample
That she would have money.
Correct. In the CD to pay me out of the proceeds of the CD. And she didn't want to cash it in early because she didn't want to pay the penalty. I agreed to those terms within 30 days that she would use the CD.
Was this on the telephone?
That was on the telephone.
Okay. Because you did ask her the question about money.
Correct.
And when you said, do you have money, what did she say?
I have a CD.
Okay. So, did you tell her how much the bail would be?
Correct. 10%, $5,000.
Because she had $50,000 bail?
Correct.
That's a high bail for domestic violence.
It is.
Do you know why it was so high?
That's per the schedule in that county. That's always $50,000 for a felony charge.
It was a felony.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So we get her out. We memorialize our agreement in writing. She
Can I
signs
see it,
a
please?
bail contract and the agreement to pay.
Can I see it, please? Okay, so you signed an agreement to pay him the $5,000.
I had no choice. He made me sign it.
But
Madam,
listen to me very carefully, madam. You have a choice. Your choice is to stay in jail until the matter on which you were arrested for is tried. That's your choice. You chose.
We had a different agreement.
No, no, no. This is your agreement. This in here is your agreement, in the four corners of this agreement. And what I asked you was, did you sign this agreement? And the answer is either yes or no, not
Yes,
I was forced to
I did sign
sign
that
it.
agreement, but aside from that, there was an oral agreement that took place between me and Mr. McAllister.
I'll get
and
to
I
you in
had-
a minute.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Once the agreement's signed, I get her out of jail. She says, now what do? I live 30 minutes from here. I agreed to give her a ride. She's worried about getting to work, so I give her a ride. And it's about 30 minutes away. So during that time, she tells me the entire story about the arrest, and I attempt to be understanding that, you know, she was arrested, and I'm sorry, and that's a bad thing, and you're dealing with a breakup, and, you know, how she caught her boyfriend with his new girlfriend laying on the couch that she paid for or she picked out. And the entire time in the car,
Would you look at me when you're telling me this story, Mr. McAllister? Look at me. Don't look down there.
Sorry. The entire time in the car, she says, I'm not a stalker, I'm not a stalker. I go, okay, sorry, you're not a stalker. No problem. Okay, I'll get you to your vehicle. Well, the vehicle's parked 3 blocks away from the house where she was living or where she was arrested. So there's obviously something going on there. Anyway, I get her out, she signs the agreement, and she refuses to pay me.
Just a second. When did she sign the agreement?
Immediately upon release from the county jail.
Okay. And then you drove her to her car.
Correct.
And you dropped her, and she never paid you.
Right. I made
When, for
repeated
the first time, did you contact her with regard to payment?
Well, within 10 days, we sent her an invoice, just a reminder of the payment terms, and sent her 4 or 5 subsequent invoices that went answered with these rambling letters talking
Do you have
about...
a copy of the letters?
I do.
Can I see them, please?
Those are her letters to me and then my responses.
Based upon our discussion, these are your words, when he initially asked you for your money. Based upon our discussion, it was my understanding that we would discuss my opportunity to provide some type of service to you and your business in lieu of paying you $5,000 for a relatively risk-free, as you put it, bond. I am still awaiting the opportunity to make good on my offer to work for your company. As you were advised at the time the bond was posted, I have not, or do not have now, $5,000 fee that you are demanding. Given the above-mentioned discussions that we had at the time of the unsecured bond was posted, I now consider your correspondence demanding $5,000 to be intimidating and threatening. What are you, crazy? Please do not send me any more threatening letters. You knew my financial predicament at the time bail was posted. I still intend to honor my promise to perform professional services for you. You never promised to perform professional services for him. Your own letter says, it was my understanding that we would discuss my opportunity to provide some type of service to you or your business in lieu of paying for the bond. Given the above-mentioned discussions that we had at the time, I now consider your... Discussions
Well,
are on a contract,
let
madam.
me tell you what happened.
Yeah, go
Because
ahead.
he's not telling you the whole truth.
Go
what
ahead.
happened, he bails me out.
Are
he
you,
knows I
just a
don't-
second, are you telling me the whole truth? Listen, are you
Yes.
telling me the whole truth?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
About your children's living arrangements? You're telling me the whole truth?
We're not talking about my children right now. I want to tell you.
You mean you're telling the truth?
About what
Listen to me.
happened.
You're telling the truth sometimes, and sometimes you can lie. And when am I supposed to tell the difference? You see, I knew that you were lying to me about your children's living situation. That you're not willing to discuss.
What did I lie about?
Listen to me. My question to you is, how am I supposed to tell when you're lying, and how am I supposed to tell when you're telling the truth?
I do tell the truth.
But you just lied to me today.
About what?
You lied about your children's living situation.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
How did I lie?
Oh, yes, you did. And you know you did. You know that they live with me part-time, they live with some part-time, they live here because I work. That's not the story. But that's a story you chose to tell me. Now, you told me that with the same veracity as you told me that you had another contract with him. And my question to you is, how am I supposed to tell when you're telling the truth and when you're lying?
What I'm saying is the truth.
Okay. Now I'm going to hear you, and then I'll tell you what the law is.
Okay. Well, he bails me out. He drives me to my vehicle. On the way to my vehicle, he makes comments about, and he says, well, it would be nice if a pretty woman like you worked for my company doing some sort of marketing and promoting my company, and maybe we can work something out in terms of paying for the bail bond that he posted on my behalf. So when he dropped me off by my vehicle, and before he left, he made me sign the agreement that you saw after we had the conversation of me potentially working for his company.
Did you get what you said to me, madam? You just said to me, maybe you could work for my company. Maybe you could work for my company.
And
that's not an agreement.
No,
that's not. No. After that, nothing. You took that, and I believe that you said that to her. Well, maybe you could work for my company and do something. Maybe you said it to her. Who cares? It's not relevant. There was no contract.
I said I couldn't work for him full time as he proposed.
So
he
no,
We
madam.
can work something out, and you can work for me on weekends.
Oh, listen to me. Listen to me. You're making it up as you're going along.
No.
Yes.
No, I have
you are
a
because
letter.
according to what you said to me, after you had that discussion, after, not before. You see, he said you signed this at the jail.
No.
You say I signed it after I had the discussion with him about working with him part-time, weekends, etc. If that was true, that's not contained in this agreement.
No.
And I believe, madam, that you are one smart cookie. And if he had this conversation with you where you made a contract with him, a contract that's enforceable, to work off the bail bond by working for him part-time, you would have put it in this agreement because you're already out of jail. You see, you're already out. Because you're already bailed out. So then you could either say to him, I'm not signing this. Or you say, it's not the entire agreement that we have. But you didn't. You signed it and said, I promise to pay you $5,000.
Well, he told me right there that if you don't sign it, I'm just going to put you right back to jail. That's what he told me.
I don't believe you. You're making it up as you're going along.
No.
You're making it up as you're going along because if he said to you, you signed this or I'm going to take you back to jail.
That's what he said?
Your response would have been, well, then put in our agreement that I could work it off, right? Right?
I was very stressed.
Oh, listen, it's not the first time you were arrested. That's why I asked you the question before. It's not the first time. It's probably not the second time that you were arrested. So pay him his money. You owe him his money. Don't be a con artist. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
सगळे कॉर दिला का चौलीकडे असं हाँ शबर माना पजल करीम बांध बोल سورة واخلم هغه خو باند ول به زه خو په توکل مې د لرنګ وکړه اندې وانګه کولنګونه مې ورکړو هغه زه بهر له وتی یم پچاس می رو تو خواه لیکان بازار خو بازار گرم نه دوی هفته وش بی تو مڑا مطلب ندا این کنه تو مطلب ندا سکی
هغه ولا به اوس شو ترانسفورمر ولا چې لاړ شي که نه پښتانه به دې په دې چا باندې نه اوس تیل نه وویلي
ویلې
که نه یې راخستې دې راواخله زما غم درسم بیا به راکړي
کار یې شروع کړی کار نه راویلي
ته پوه شوې ویر دې نه شي ښځه منډه که بابا غولو
داسې
زیرات رې ته بیسي
سابویټینګ ایسی او باجی سی نور سکش پی لگا بس تو کار دې بریک خواهد
نه وایي چې لږ صبر وکړه بیا به ګورو
اول اعتبار پرې مانه بس هغه سر وخوړل او کې لاړه خسه
تاسو پیرو
نه اوس مو کې سویر کړل مانه دا ویدله پېښ په دا ویدله ویر کړل ته سې زړی جوړې ولا سره تش کادو دا روپیر سره شته چې اوس دلوي چې وکیل چې یو لا کرا کای و تاریخ یا اسه
یو لاک نه خو ما ټول 2000
ناوید ویلې خو کروڑ په لاګي خدوا کروڑ ای مولا را او دې کی ساما می کندولي نه چلی خسه
بس صحیح ده ما کندولي ده
مړه ډېر زړه مو خاطا جوړو بس په خالي خال Stop.